Hey guys, give me just a second to pull up the separate chart window and throw the link over in the Discords. See here, let me pull up the list. I know people ask for a few specific tickers, and then we'll dive into Tesla. Just a second, bear with me. Yeah, I got you, Deesh. Pulling up Tesla. Let's see. Real quick. Got Tesla here. Let me fix the chart. Well, let me drop it over on bullish rate real quick so my bullish rate homies can join. Yeah, Deej, my bad, dude. It would help if I actually drop the link there for you, huh? Let's see. Give the other two just a second to join in. Cool. Alright, let's see. Alright, so Tesla, right? We all know we had this huge, massive pop last week off of earnings, which was great. And I personally took this an opportunity to sell more covered calls, and I'll show you why here in a second. So if you look here, right, you can see, zoom over, range I like to sell covered calls in. Okay, which I've done this over and over and over again. I've got the orange block here, but ultimately I've been doing this for like 3 years now. So, Tesla. You've got that nice strong breakout, right? But if you look at the daily, and sorry for all the lines, we're trading multiple time horizons on Tesla at the moment. So I've got a lot of additional lines going on right now. But ultimately each of these lines has specific significance. So try not to get lost in the lines. You can see the legend in the description. Thanks for that like. Yeah, if you are listening in, feel free to like, subscribe. Appreciate it. It helps overall with the feedback for YouTube and the algorithm. So looking at this, so you can see we pumped, right? We left this massive gap on the chart with the gap at 242.08. I don't like this gap lingering on Tesla. I know it got a very bullish pump off the hype of the earnings, but that being said, I'm seeing different flows over on Unusual Whales, which I can show you an example of that separately. So until I see a shift, and I've talked about this in other videos, until I see an actual shift with what the larger funds and whales are doing, I'm going to continue to sell covered calls against my Tesla shares. Reason being is also, even though we got this massive pop, right? This is the last week of the month. But that being said, let me show you something really quick, just so we're all on the same page for where Tesla currently stands. I'm going to hide the drawings just to show this for simplicity's sake. Alright, so you've got this high from 2021, followed by this low in January 2023, and then we formed a lower high. Okay, so currently our trend is still a downtrend off of that high. Then following that lower high, we have a higher low. Sure, this is not a trend reversal yet. This is simply an attempt at a push. We don't have an actual trend reversal until we form a higher high above this previous lower high. At that point, this is considered a reversal of that downtrend that we're currently in. If you look at the lines, you can actually see this blue line was the downtrend line that we're following. We're trying to break out, but even right now, last month was the first month that we had pushed above with an actual candle. I'm watching this very, very closely this week. Just like I said, over on the flows for the whales and larger funds, I'm still seeing massive amounts of calls being pumped out. I think I actually dropped a screenshot of it over in the lounge, but at any rate, I'll find it and I'll share that as well. But you can see where they're selling spike premium calls. I had to guess either let it pull back here yet again, and they buy to close those calls that they sold against their long-term shareholdings, same thing that I started doing, or they let it trade relatively flat and those premiums burn up anyways. So be careful here. While Tesla has multiple bullish setups going on, it also has multiple bearish setups, and until we get some kind of actual confirmed breakout on the monthly and quarterly that has follow through, I would tread carefully. Yes, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. I know Ford had after hours earnings today, but like you can see, when we rejected again today into this orange zone, which I've been selling covered calls on Friday, and I should have sold one more because I've got two more I can sell, but I should have sold one or two more today. I'll wait and see what happens here because we really do need some actual pullback there before we can move further to the upside. That being said, I'm also trading carefully. If I see a shift in those whale flows to where they're actually starting to close their call positions, that's an indication to me that they're expecting it to actually push up and above this range. And at that point, I'll have to consider whether I buy to close my calls, which they're up right now, so it would be okay. I just would not collect as much premium. Or I could potentially roll them out, or I could ride them and see if we reject within this range again very hard off that 300 level. So as of right now, I'm still riding through the zone. Same thing in this back here. We had this big old pump, right? And then Robotaxi happened, and then we rejected hard and pulled back. I sold covered calls in this range, and people thought I was crazy because I didn't like panic when we pushed up a little bit higher. But you trade Tesla long enough this way, you kind of get used to it, and you're not scared about slight deviations of 10 to 20% on a covered call position. So riding this through, once I see actual confirmation of holding above that range, and like I said, seeing the whales or the larger funds doing something different, then I'll consider closing out those positions and riding my shares up higher. As of right now, I'm going to keep on hedging because that's how I've grown my shareholdings the way I have. But Tesla right now, you can see the key levels we really need to watch in this range, also as well as this trend. That trend technically was broken to the downside, and then with earnings we pushed more to the upside, which it's interesting. If you look here, notice how it tested that trend tap. I wouldn't be surprised to see a retest of this trend. The thing that's kind of iffy here with Tesla, and I know Deej and I were talking about earlier today. Tony, I was trying to read your comment. Sorry, that was where's that from? It's today, right? Oh, it's earlier this afternoon. Sorry, I just now saw your scalping comment. My bad, dude. Sorry, got derailed there a bit, but watching this set up on Tesla, I want to see what happens. This could turn into a bull flag and push higher. Alternatively, we could reject really hard off this level. The dangerous thing, like I was saying around Tesla in this range, is if it does reject in this range, it can reject really hard. And what you want to be careful of here with Tesla, because I've seen it time and time again, is you have a lot of investors that they bought in on these previous hypes, and basically they get in this range where they push above, basically it's above the supply zone, right? So they push above what their actual break-even price was, and then when we get these hard sell-offs, they panic, and a lot of investors will actually start to sell off their shares because they don't want to be sitting, negative 30% in that share position again, like they had to do multiple times before. They're like, I know that this thing can drop hard, I'm gonna go ahead and sell off, and they panic sell. So what happens with that is capitulation, to where things just really cave, and we get a really hard sell off that the momentum picks up harder and harder. So be careful right here on Tesla. Definitely still bullish long term on it. Y'all know I've said that many times. I'm bullish on Elon and Tesla longer term, but in the shorter term, I'm being careful because a lot of the hype around robotaxi, the robots, even some of the larger scale production, that stuff's not supposed to kick in until like 2026. So you're not going to see actual revenue impacts for that until 2026, 2027, 2028. So longer term, yeah, makes sense. Shorter term, be careful. It's not unrealistic at all to see this gap right here fill. It's done it way too many times. So just tread carefully. Don't chase too hard. But yeah, that's where Tesla currently stands. We're in a lotto put that did like 40% today, so I'll see what happens with that. Let's see real quick, what's the next ticker on the list before I start going down other alternative options. I'm gonna look at AMD real quick because that was requested. And that's looking beautiful. So those of you that have been following know that I've been trading AMD calls for 2025 off of this breakout and retest here. So that's actually looking really good right now. I would like to see the continuation with that. Let's see. Jump back. Yeah, I like this. So we got the breakout, right? Come back, retest, and then ideally right here we get the solid bounce and push up to either fill that gap at 174.53 or push up towards the 180 mark. I want to be careful here again because it's the end of the month and we have the election next week, and there's all kinds of crap that can cause volatility right now. A lot of the current movement is happening based off of low volume, so you actually have a weird situation where on a lot of these stocks you actually have a lot of movement being driven by retail investors. And the reason why you want to be careful with that is once you have the actual funds and the larger managers start to step back in and their volume picks up, it can either push up very hard to the upside on some of these stocks, or they step in and start selling. It can plummet very fast because they can overflow the actual retail investors. So again, trade carefully. A lot of the action we've got going on right now is the low volume price action, with the exception of some of the things with earnings. We've got tons of earnings this week. So you've got AMD tomorrow. Let's see, when is NVDA? Real quickly, we'll look at the NVDA chart separately because I don't want to dive too deep into it just yet. But yeah, AMD breakout of this downtrend, and then Chris, I think it was you that mentioned this morning the cup and handle on the monthly. So there's so many bullish things going on with AMD right now. I love the setup. That's why I'm in those swing calls for 2025. I'll watch it closely. If I see that we do break and reject back underneath that resistance and push back into that trend, I'll actually consider trading puts on the shorter term as a hedge, but also why not make gains in the meantime. I also left myself plenty of space to phase into the call options for 2025 that I got in. I only bought one of my portions so far, so I still have room to actually add to that position if I want to average in. So, okay, AMD, talk through that. I'm going to jump over to NVIDIA because I think that stressed out some people today. And one thing I want to mention again, since I've talked about it before on here, is with the chip stocks. One thing you need to be careful of, and not necessarily make trading decisions on, but more so be aware that it can impact things, is the election outcome. Specifically, if Trump gets elected, there's been lots of talks of tariffs, especially that are going to impact some of these chip manufacturers. So be careful, just take that in consideration, hedge accordingly. By no means am I saying bearish on NVIDIA, AMD, and chips. You just heard me say I'm bullish. That being said, I also hedge, just like I sell covered calls on Tesla. I'm about to start selling covered calls on my NVIDIA shares here. If you don't want to sell covered calls because you're worried that you're actually going to get assigned and you really don't want to sell your shares at that price point, You might consider shorter term puts that would offset and give you the ability to hedge your longer term shareholding position. There's lots of other strategies you can use as well to hedge a long term shareholding position, but I definitely recommend people tread carefully the next couple of weeks. We're going to have a lot of volatility within the markets. But here on NVIDIA, you can see that I actually have my measured move for this inverse head and shoulders setup. It's way up here at that like 175-ish range, so I'm still bullish on NVIDIA. I'm just treading carefully. I was talking with the guy this weekend over on the NVIDIA shareholder Facebook group because he's very bullish and I get it, but a lot of the newer traders, they only really know the super bullish movement, and it's not really fair to those newer traders for people to nonstop tell them that NVIDIA is going to 500, NVIDIA is going to 1,000, because that type of movement's not really realistic. I know that we've had huge gains on NVIDIA the last 2 years, but you also have to take into account the market cap that it takes to actually do that. And I was looking at the data this weekend when NVIDIA pushed up and its market cap was, I forget what it touched on Friday, but the market cap for NVIDIA was actually larger than the market cap for all global country stock markets independently, except for like 3, being like the US, China, and maybe Japan. I can't recall what the third one was, but basically NVIDIA's market cap alone was more than any other country's stock market cap total was. So just take that into account. Like I said, it's not really realistic to expect a $4 trillion market cap stock to keep on doubling year over year, because you're talking about an absurd amount of money. So keep in mind that as well. This is also a bearish engulfing daily candle, so I would tread carefully here on NVIDIA because it's also rejected, it looks like. Let me check and make sure. It's right under that wick from that previous level, so yeah, if I see a rejection tomorrow, like ideally you sell your covered calls on the pumps, right? Same thing as what I do with Tesla. I should have probably went ahead and sold a couple on NVIDIA, but I've been super patient about that, so I will see where it is tomorrow. If it makes sense to go ahead and sell some covered calls to hedge, I might do that. But yeah, I like the setup overall. Still watching it because that can be a bullish movement coming off of there. So what we need is bullish continuation. But if we see a confirmation of a rejection on the daily and weekly here, just look out, because there's a lot of downside movement really fast right here to the next demand zone, down sub 130. Let's see, SoFi, because that was banging today. So SoFi, right? Big pop, still moving up. Here, I'll jump over the daily and just zoom out. But you can see here, it completed that first upside movement, but it's still in bullish continuation. So what I'm looking for here is some consolidation in this zone. Wouldn't even mind to see a gap fill here at 1065 before more upward movement. It played out the move for that inverse head and shoulders, which was great. The SoFi calls that we were in are up 357%, so that's rocking. Still riding that. I want to see what happens in this range. Another one that we were patient with and that the calls just absolutely ripped today was Sound. Look at this setup on Sound. I know I shared it with y'all previously. So there was the inverse head and shoulders we were trading here, and then the measured move for that inverse head and shoulders breakout, which I don't recall why I deleted it. I think to clean it up, but it's here. The retest of the neckline, then we broke out. But look at this. Look at this huge green candle. So that is a huge green candle with huge volume behind it. So that's the type of move that actually sets you up for a very solid continuation move. We blew right through that supply zone, which is fantastic. So you can see we actually got really close to tagging the 5th price target from that call entry that we did on the retest. Right now, I'm looking for maybe a little pullback if we even get it. That's a hell of a green candle. They've got earnings tomorrow. Wait, no, this is Sound. Sound's got earnings when. SoFi has earnings tomorrow, so I'm watching that. But November 12th, okay. I'm going to keep watching that as we head into earnings, but that's a sweet setup, especially if there's some AI hype with earnings this week. You can expect that to impact Sound in a positive manner. Loving this setup. We're in shares as well on that right now, so I will ride that out a bit until I see something change otherwise. Another stock that we're watching right now, of course, is Palantir. because I love this stock and it's one of my favorite longs. I know you've heard me say that tons of times, but I'm gonna keep on saying it because I love it. I started adding in these little notes so y'all can get a little bit of clarity as well while I share just the screenshots. But what we had here, I'm gonna delete some of these minor support and resistance levels. I can always add them back if we need to, but I'm gonna delete them just so that it's a little bit cleaner for y'all to actually see what's going on. So we had this bullish megaphone pattern that we broke out of, right? But then there was actually another bull flag set up here that we broke out of. The measured move for that bull flag was right here at this $45 mark, which you can see that we completed that measured move right there, spot on, right? So one thing with these setups, and this is why you want to pick the appropriate calls and options for whatever the time horizon is of your trade. Tony, I hope you're listening, dude, because I know we were talking through it earlier this morning in chat, and it's easier to talk through it over a video like this. But for it to complete that measured move, it actually took almost the full month of October for Palantir to actually make that measured move to the upside, right? Even though it pushed solid right here and a lot of people panicked and bailed, it pulled back, it consolidated, and that's more bullish upside movement. And now we have another bull flag yet again, which this is like beautiful technical movement. And this next target that we actually have here of this breakout is going to be up here in this 50 plus range. So keep in mind, I'm going to jump over the monthly so you can see this. That $45 mark was a little bit easier to align that measured move because that was our historical previous high. So right now we're trading into unknown territory. So going purely based off what the measurements and technical breakouts are, I'll watch this closely because this is another one that I've held off on selling covered calls against my shares on it just because I knew it had very bullish setup. It was showing no signs of weakness and it kept on running. So I just kept on riding it out. Also, it didn't make sense necessarily to actually sell covered calls to me because there was more upside movement gained than I was willing to risk for the minimal premium collection. So riding this at the moment, if I see a rejection back below the levels, especially if we lose this 42 level, I'll sell covered calls on a bounce to hedge my position. As of right now, bullish continuation, that's looking solid. This stock also does well with increased global escalations and stuff just because the cyber intelligence and cybersecurity component of it. But watching this overall, see what's happening. What's the next ticker on the list? Y'all can drop them in the chat if you need to as well. But the next ticker on the list from the alert trades, the Veil. I'm gonna look at that real quick because you're asking about it. So like, look, here's the thing on Veil. I know this thing moves a lot differently than a lot of y'all are used to with options trading, right? Veil is one of those that just, you have to be used to it. It's not going to move like Tesla does and like other tickers do. For one, it's very different market cap, different sector altogether. But the thing on Veil is that when it's in this zone and I see the bullish call movement over on the whale flows, I know to sort of be patient. So this is why I started easing into Veil calls. They're stupid cheap. But in the past, whenever I trade this setup, if it holds that support range, it can rip up from this range and very quickly head towards these price targets, especially depending on how the election plays out. We'll see, but that could have an impact. I think Tesla was also pursuing a partnership or something with them, but I think they're pursuing other mines now. So Vail had some news last week with the settlement from their dam collapse situation. That being said, the calls are cheap. I'm riding them out at this point just because if we do get the breakout to the upside here, it can very quickly run to 12 plus. So even though those $12 calls are super cheap now, it's one of those trades that multiplies really quickly once it goes in the money. So this one requires just some patience. Again, it's not going to be the type of trade everyone wants to take, and lots of people aren't going to be comfortable with it because it moves so different than what they're used to. But I mean, look at this big buying volume followed by the upside movement. Definitely watching that. It broke out that shorter term downtrend. So I'll see what happens there. Let me see. Yeah, I'm going to look at DJT for you. So, yes, this is ripping. I did not trade heavily in calls except for those shorter term lottos the other day. But it's one of those gamble, high risk meme lotto situations that, of course, it's ripping because the election and he keeps gaining traction. in the polls of what it looks like. But as of right now, that thing is just completely moonbound. Oh, look, it's about to actually crack $50. If it doesn't get a hard rejection at 50, it'll move up to 55 or higher. So if you're in calls, congrats. That's going to keep on mooning. Kind of wish I would have left more of those runner long-term calls on it now, just to gamble. But be careful on this. The puts haven't made sense just yet because the implied volatility is so high at this point. You want to be careful about just buying puts with the expectation that it dumps, because it's either going to dump or keep on ripping following the election. So I'm personally not trading DJT. I'm happy for all of y'all that are that it's ripping, but for me, the risk to reward just not worth it because those options are stupid expensive now. Let's see. PayPal. Yep. So another beautiful bull flag breakout on PayPal, right? I'm still in my calls on PayPal here. I've got earnings. When is earnings? Tomorrow? Yep. Is it pre-market? Let me check real quick. Or is it post? It probably said right there where I clicked, but it's before open. Okay, so I'm in the calls. Luckily, I've already covered cost basis because those things are up 268%. So I sold half to cover my cost basis at 100%, and I'm riding runners. That is the safe way to do it. This is great. It's probably going to head towards that gap fill at 85.20. I'll be really careful on this, especially tomorrow with earnings. My calls are far enough out that they're in 2025. IV crush shouldn't be significant at all towards them. I didn't look at what the expected move was, so that might bite me some. We'll see real quick. It's a great website if anyone wants to use it as well. So it's tools.optionsai.com, expected move. So you can go in here with pretty much any ticker, especially around earnings, and you can see what the implied move is on the options heading into them. So right here on PayPal, you can see that the implied move is 7% plus for this week's options, but then 3 to 4 weeks out, there's actually an expected or implied move of over 10%. So what that means is if we get a move smaller than 10%, those November options are going to get IV crush regardless of direction. So you can see that's a significant range for this stock. So I will be careful on that. If I see signs of it rejecting or dumping tomorrow morning after earnings, I might go ahead and lock gains on my calls for next year just to be safe. And I can always re-enter those if I want to. But definitely going to be watching that closely. What other ticker did we have here? So we did SoFi Sound. So GameStop is actually showing, since that's a fan favorite, GameStop is showing a hell of a breakout setup similar to what it did before. So look, it's got this big momentum pushing up and out of the trend here. So I'm going to be watching that closely, especially if it can push above 24. I phased into some December $20 calls, just super light position on that. They're up about 15% so far, but what I'd be looking for here is see if you get a retest of the trend and upside movement. They've got earnings coming up in December, so you got time before earnings as well. Keep an eye on GameStop there. I haven't checked the interest, the short interest or anything on it, but there's definitely some traction movement going on there. So watch it and see what happens. Let's see. Next ticker, Rivian. So interesting thing on Rivian is it didn't get smacked as hard as Tesla did in after hours today with the Ford EV news, which for those that haven't seen it yet, Ford EV lost like $5.5 billion or something this year. So EV's not looking great over on the Ford side. But yeah, Rivian still breakout to the upside here. A lot of my bullish vibe, I guess you could say, towards Rivian's not necessarily towards the consumer hype, even though I have seen more consumer vehicles on the road. There's at any given point in my neighborhood, there's like 5+ Rivian trucks through Amazon in the neighborhood. So Rivian's contracts with Amazon alone are significant. I think that Rivian's going to continue to get traction in EV. If we see some news that says otherwise, I'll reconsider. But as of right now, that's a longer term breakout that I'm actually going to phase in and see if we can get a better position too on some additional calls for maybe even further out. But yeah, I'm easing into calls longer term on Rivian here because I think it's a solid stock and I like the setup. So DraftKings did some lotto calls on this based off the setup here because it broke out of the downtrend, but then also got its retest already. It looks like it's holding nice support here, so you could see a move to $39. The calls I was in are shorter dated. They hit 41% this morning, so I trimmed to cover my cost basis as soon as it makes sense. So I'm riding runners. We'll see what happens. Setup's interesting, so we'll see real quick so we're not leaving something out. Since people are freaking out yet again about crypto over the weekend, and yet here we are continuing our breakout. So I know a lot of people have been freaking out. Y'all know I'm bullish on crypto since I've been in it since 2017, and I love my crypto. But make sure I didn't move that. Right here, that's yet another bull flag breakout. Okay, so it pushes up and holds here. This thing's going to new highs. What is it within at this point? %, the all-time highs on Bitcoin. So especially I think with the election is why we're seeing a little bit of throttling here. That being said, depending on the election outcome, if it's Trump, because he's such a big proponent for crypto, this is likely going to rocket. Also, if you're familiar with blockchain technology and halving cycles of Bitcoin, we're coming up on that point where you're going to see the movement, right? So the breakout of this long-term bull flag here actually puts this measured move at around 120K. If you haven't been on the videos before, you know that I've mentioned that we're likely going to see some psychological sell-off when it hits that 100K mark. That being said, that's a hell of a bull flag, and that is a nice cup and handle, and Bitcoin looks as bullish as ever. I forget who it was over in the lounge was asking this weekend around Solana versus Ethereum. So let me show you something real quick on that while we're actually on the charts, and maybe I should do this as a separate video so that people don't have to watch through it, but hey, you can jump around. So why am I so bullish on Solana? So this setup as a whole is very bullish. You have a hell of a bull flag here, lots of bullish volume going up, cup and handle formation attempting. I'd like to see the right side higher than the left side, but I'll take it. So what we're seeing here is potential upside movement. If you're not familiar with Sol, it's a different technology. It's more of a hybrid. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Sol are Solana are very different types of crypto and all serve different purposes. So right now I'm watching this. It's playing out this inverse head and shoulder setup at the moment, which was great, along with the bull flag, forming another bull flag here. Measured move of the inverse head and shoulders is going to put it over the 200 mark, or at least at that previous resistance level. If it does push above that resistance with volume, the sucker's going to moon and continue pushing up towards that 250 mark. So y'all know my position on this. I am up over 1,000% on it still, so maybe I'm a bit biased, but that being said, like, I truly believe in it. Otherwise I would have sold some already to collect gains, and I haven't. Whereas if you look over here from a technical standpoint at Ethereum, wrong one. Oh, I did pull the right one, even though I clicked too fast. Right. So from a technical standpoint, I'm going to delete these lines just because they're muddying up the thing right now. See how different the setup is on Ethereum right now as compared to Sol and Bitcoin and everything else. I mean, if anything, Ethereum has a similar setup to Sol, but nothing like Bitcoin whatsoever. It's also got a bit of a bear flag going on here on that right hand side, which I don't love, as compared to just a bullish setup. For instance, like if I jump back, like this is the weekly, right? You can see that there's a bear flag here, whereas if you jump back to Sol real quick, just for comparison's sake, sorry, can't talk. Notice the difference here, how that's not a bear flag, that's actually bullish and pushing up. So that's the difference between those two from a technical standpoint. That being said, yeah, I use Tether rather than US Solish, but it can still push up, especially if crypto as a whole rips. Sure, everything's gonna get a bit of sympathy pump, but I would be careful here. Ultimately, from my standpoint, Ethereum, ever since they went proof of stake rather than proof of work, it kind of throttled it a bit because it lost a lot of its I guess appeal to some extent, because it ultimately had a lot of traction and movement because it was one of the few cryptos that GPU miners could still mine. So that's where a lot of the movement came from. But as soon as they went proof of stake instead of proof of work, it lost interest from a lot of people. So I mean, I was mining Ethereum myself there for the longest, and I don't mine Ethereum anymore because it's just not proper. Obviously, you can't proof of stake, right? But even altcoins that are based off the Ethereum blockchain aren't all that beneficial to mine at the moment. So watching this, like I said, if it breaks out, everything's gonna break out probably. Look over here at Doge, or not Doge. I can't type, guys. But Doge is going for a breakout here. The dig, I'm gonna delete this because it completed that measured move. Actually, I think I alerted Doge and SHIB based off that downtrend breakout, but this is a sweet setup. I'm not expecting this move over here necessarily from Doge, because keep in mind that this was, for those of you that aren't aware, this was the hype around, for one, the Super Bowl, followed by Elon being on Saturday Night Live and hyping Dogecoin at the time. So that's where this wick right here came from. So be careful. I'm not saying it can't, especially since most retail investors are drawn to Doge because the price point compared to Bitcoin or Ethereum, because people like to own whole amounts rather than fractional shares or fractional tokens or coins. But it can rip. I would just be careful, set realistic expectations on that movement. Ultimately, for a lot of these crypto projects, now is still, don't feel like, oh, I missed the boat, I shouldn't get in now. Now is actually a great time to be adding and entering into positions. Because same thing on Sol, and I'll show it now. I'll state it just so that you can see it for the sake of like the same type of situation that's going on right now. There's plenty of people that for Sol, you could have seen this big move back here in 2021 and been like, all right, I'm out, I missed the boat. You know, like crypto's not for me. I missed it. But what I did actually, and maybe it's I'm more comfortable, I get that, than most are with crypto. But January 2023, right over here in this area, actually, where am I? Right over here in this area, I took like I forget how much of my Ethereum mining rewards that I need to put in something, and I bought a large chunk of Solana at the time. But the reason I say that is if you've got a project and a crypto coin that is strong from a long-term perspective, it shows a lot of use and utility, then it makes sense to be in it long-term. So I bought it there. I'm up over 1,000%. So I'm sharing this though to state that don't feel like you missed the boat with crypto, because crypto is just now getting mass adoption. Like, I know that people feel like they missed the hype of it a few years back, but welcome to crypto. The cycles repeat. Plenty of people bailed out of crypto back in 2018, 2019. I even turned off, and this is kind of one of my big crypto regrets that I don't know that I've shared on the videos yet, but I've shared it over in Discord, so I'll share it here. But we were moving houses in 2018, 2019, and I boxed up all of my crypto mining rigs in 2019 as we were getting ready to move, and then I didn't actually set them back up at the new house immediately. So they sat in boxes for like several months when they could have actually been mining a lot more crypto. Then crypto did what it did in 2020 and 2021, and had I actually been mining crypto in that 6 months or so that sat in tubs, it would have been probably over $500,000 worth of additional crypto that I missed out on in those 6 months that I would have mined. So I share that because, like, don't fall into the trap of feeling like you missed the boat with crypto. It's just getting rolling. So I'm gonna look at SHIB real quick, because it actually is probably getting in its breakout zone here too. Yeah, it's getting ready to. You can see it's kind of coiling up. It broke out of the downtrend and it's about to pop. So SHIB's another one of those that retail investors flock to because the cheaper price point. So you can actually see it's probably gonna break out. Ooh, BTC hit 70K. I didn't see that a minute ago when we looked at it. But that's where that psychological factor, like I was mentioning, comes into play, because even hitting 70K, you saw a little bit of like hesitation. It sounds like, look, it didn't. So here's the thing. It hit 70K on some exchange, specifically probably on Coinbase, which is why that alert went out. It hasn't hit 70K USDT over on Binance. So if you look at BTC USD, okay, it still didn't on Bitstamp. Where's Coinbase? What exchange did it? Oh, okay, it did tag it. It tagged 70K right there on Coinbase. So, prime example of how much higher the fees are baked in on your prices that you're paying on Coinbase, which I'm not going to go into the different exchanges and everything in crypto here. I did that on a separate video, and maybe I'll break a video out for just that. But yeah, crypto breaks 70K here and carries, it's going to run. So, I'm not going to miss out the boat on that. Let me see if there's any other tickers really quick that need to be gone through. We did AMD. SMCI has earnings this week or whatever, but like, you don't want to mess with that thing. They're in legal trouble yet again. It's just not worth it. So if it gets a big pop off of earnings, I'm buying puts if they get IV crushed, just because this is not a ticker that you want to mess with long term. Honestly, with earnings, this thing might actually break down from this next bear flag that's got going on here. So I'm not going to enter puts because the IV is probably absurd on them. And I don't want to get IV crushed, but just something to keep in mind. Let's see, any other tickers that y'all need me to cover real quick? Let's see, oh, AMC was listening in. Yeah, I could have, dude. So 260 puts. I sold your alert for puts. It's in right now. Oh yeah, some of the guys over on Bullish Trade sold off their puts this morning. I was like, what are you doing on Tesla? Like, tell you why. This is why you trade based off charts and you don't base it off of what you feel. A few of the guys sold off their puts this morning in panic when Tesla hit this level up here, but for me, that was my entry sign for Tesla based off of the underlying. So when it rejected back under this 271 level and I saw the confirmation on the 15-minute, I absolutely entered some short-term puts on it because I saw that confirmation of that rejection, and then from there, here we are. So it's likely going to keep dropping. For those of you that just joined in on the video, you can jump back towards the beginning. I did a deeper dive on Tesla, so you can actually talk through or watch through that part if you want to see where that's going. See, are there any other tickers that I needed to cover based off the request? I want to make sure I cover everyone's request. I think I covered most of them. What I will do is if there's any other tickers that we want to talk through, we can talk through those. I should be able to probably pull those for you in the morning. Let me check real quick. Maybe I can do a live stream tomorrow morning. I can't do it before open, but maybe between sometime right around 8 Central Time I can do one and maybe talk through some more tickers if there's any y'all want to see. I'd be happy to do that. If there are tickers in the meantime you want to see charts for or something, feel free to drop those in the chat for the YouTube or in one of the Discords or Twitter or whatever. And I should get notified and I can put it on my list to kind of circle back for you. But keep in mind, we've got lots of earnings this week, so things are going to be volatile one way or another. Be careful with your trading. I know a lot of people are just sitting in cash, and there's nothing wrong with that, but definitely be careful. There's nothing wrong with sitting out, being patient, wait for the right setup. So I will go ahead and wrap this one up. If there's any other tickers, like I said, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll put it on the video list, or I'll just pull the charts for you. But I hope everyone has a great evening, and look forward to trading tomorrow.